Everyone. I'm Christine Chen, and I am a NSLI Alumni Representative. I, along with Ryan Twaddle, who's also a NSLI Alumni Representative, are hosting this event today. And we have two CLS alumni who will be answering questions. And so please just post your questions in the comment box on the live stream, and we'll try to get to all your questions as quickly as possible. So to start, I'd like to introduce you all to Belle and Kathy. If you guys can give the viewers some information about yourself and what CLS program you guys participated in.
Absolutely. I can go first. So I'm Belle. Hello, all. I went to Dushanbe, Tajikistan to study Persian. I've actually done two critical language scholarships. My first was in the summer of 2012, right after I graduated from the University of Michigan. I did my undergrad degree in history. And then the last one was just this past summer. And I'm currently a master's student at NYU. I'm continuing my focus on modern Iranian history, hence Persian, in their Near Eastern Studies department. And after this, I'm hoping to continue my studies and do a PhD in history. So yeah, Tajikistan was amazing. Both times the Critical Language Scholarship program was just phenomenal. I cannot say enough good things about it, honestly. I had two very different experiences. The first time I went, I was a very, very beginner, and this last time I was much more comfortable. So the first time I lived in an apartment with a couple of roommates, and then the second time I lived with a host family. So if you guys have any questions about those different sorts of experiences, I would be more than happy to answer that. So yeah, why I chose the language, because I study modern Iranian history. I focus on radical leftist movements in the 1970s, prison literature, and that kind of a thing. So it's very necessary for me to be able to fluently read and write and, ideally speak. And hopefully I'll get to Iran one day. But yeah, just kind of a tidbit about my time there. I guess one of my highlights from this summer, living with my host family, was absolutely incredible. Like, I would sit outside at night with my host father, and we would recite poetry together by this giant fountain in their courtyard. It was amazing. It was a really phenomenal experience.
Kathy, how about you?
Yeah, hi. I'm sorry you guys can't see my photo, or see me personally online, but I'm Kathy Kim. I'm a junior at American University studying international relations as an undergrad, and I went to Wonju, South Korea, studying Korean. I'm actually a heritage speaker for Korean, so I had two motivations for studying the language through CLS. One was personal, just being able to be more fluent in my language and understanding the South Korean culture more. And the second was more career and academic reasoning. I'm currently pursuing peace, global security, and conflict resolution at the School of International Service. And one of the conflict areas I've been looking at is North Korea and South Korea. And another academic interest is in international migration. So I've been seeing how North Korean defectors are socially and economically integrated back into South Korean society. So language acquisition and proficiency is definitely a key goal for my future, for a master's or work-related opportunities. Wonju, South Korea, the program was in its second year. All the career programs go in 3-year rotations with the different language institutions, and it was the second time they hosted CLS this past summer, and it was amazing. It went so well. We had a great residential director and a great academic director, and there was just so much clear communication and well-organized student trips and games and activities for the CLS participants, in addition to our language buddies within the country. We had a week, actually probably a week to 2 weeks long homestay situation, and then we went into the dormitories for the rest of the time. But it was a really well-planned summer and a great opportunity to continue language acquisition. And I had several highlights from the summer, but the coolest one was being able to go to this area called Panmunjom, and it's It's like the border between North Korea and South Korea, and I had no idea that there were still small villages of people living there since like the mid 1950s. So it was a really great experience being able to see that.
Awesome. So one of the questions one of the viewers had is, what did the language study look like? So probably what was your day-to-day schedule like? Did you take classes, etc.?
Sure. So we had 4 hours of class every day, well, 5 days a week, in the morning, and then we would meet with our language partners in the afternoon. Um, the first time I was there, because I was such a beginner, I had so much homework just because I didn't know anything. So I had to study a lot. So I guess I would also study about 3 or 4 hours every day. The second time around, it was a little bit easier for me. So I really took advantage of the fact that I had already been in the country and kind of knew my way around, and just I did not study probably as much as I should have. I probably should have studied a couple hours every day. But I really explored instead and took advantage of, being able to speak with, the people in the host country. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it depends on the language, really and your own, abilities in it, and your habits. Like, you do have to study, and I think there's always just like the 4 hours of classes a day for all of the language programs. But yeah, I mean, you get out of it what you put in it, like everything.
So she's completely right. If you're a beginner going into a CLS program, it's going to be challenging regardless. I found that during the summer, students who had a previous study of their language, of the target language, had an easier time adjusting just because they were already so equipped. So the environment wasn't so foreign. You can learn a culture through language, that type of situation. A lot of people started to learn the nuances of the language and the nuances of the culture as time progressed. So beginner students have a bit of a more difficult time because they have to learn so much of the basic vocabulary and sentence structuring from the beginning. And I was an intermediate student, and the work was still equally challenging, but it was a different situation. In Korea, we also had 4 hours of instructional learning, and then depending on the day, we would either have a culture class in the afternoon, or we'd have like a history type of class. And we would have various activities once or twice a week where we all came together as CLS participants. We did games. It was basically being able to practice our English in multiple environments. But I think the hardest part about studying abroad with the CLS program is making sure that you keep your goals and your priorities straight. 8 weeks for language acquisition is a very, very short time to pack in a lot of this academic learning that you would do over a course of a semester or over a course of a year. So it's a matter of keeping realistic objectives on how much you can learn and what content area that you want to learn. Having like the broad idea of, do I want to pursue something that has to do with government? What kind of terminology do I want to learn? So I was thinking more of like understanding more of like South Korean economy, South Korean politics with North Korea. So I learned more vocabulary on like refugees, like government, economy, and all these things that I normally wouldn't have been exposed to in like a language learning institution back in DC.
Okay, so I guess on that note, what were some of the other challenges other than academic challenges that you guys faced, whether it was like culture shock or any other personal challenges?
For me, culture shock wasn't too much of an issue. This was actually the first time I've spent any time abroad, well, any significant time abroad, rather. So I was just, well, I mean, some people did have a really tough time because I think they had expectations of what Tajikistan was going to be like, and obviously Tajikistan is a lot different than some of the other sites, but I think the advice that I would give to overcome something like culture shock would be the same for all of them. Just be curious about whatever it is. Like, don't have expectations. Just jump in, I think that that's very important for wherever you're going. But for me, I guess, like, one of the hardest things was being a woman in Central Asia, honestly. It is very different, and just especially when you're interacting with families and such. Like, I really wanted to talk to like my host father and his brothers and friends about what they were doing, about history, about things like that, because they are very much like in the public sphere. But I couldn't sometimes, especially if there were a lot of people around, because women would eat in a different place than the men, things like this. So for me, just personally, because I want to talk to everyone, I'm like, what? Just because I'm a girl, you're not going to talk to me? What is this? But obviously, that's a very, culturally distinct thing. So for me, that was really hard. But other than that, I mean, once I realized and just toned down my curiosity in that sense, it was fine. Just kind of adjusting to food as well, different habits, different routines.
So I'm going to jump in now. I think because the audience is mainly NSLI participants, I'm sure many of you have already experienced different kinds of culture shock and different kinds of cultural experiences that are very, very, very different. I guess just be mindful of your past experiences and see how you can shape and use them in your new environment. For a person who's traveled so much, I can never ever stop being so surprised by like my surroundings. And as a Korean American, at least going back to Korea, I don't know if any NSLI participants are applying to countries where they have heritage or family from. It was really difficult at first because I had a lot of preconceptions about what South Korean young people were like or how they would perceive me, a lot of these insecurities. So if I can advise anything, it's to go into the program with an open mind and not be afraid to ask these kinds of questions, and rather than just kind of waiting around to see how people react type of situation. And definitely, Belle had a different situation from me. Me being in South Korea, it was still a somewhat conservative society, but things have been really changing. And like you could see it through clothes, you can see it through the way you talk to people, but these small mannerisms and these small like cultural characteristics are so important to at least adhere to while you're there. I found that my white American counterparts were more conscientious of the way they acted in Korea just because like the dual perceptions of like white Americans coming into South Korea, like, post-colonialism, all this stuff, like even though it's like Korea, you wouldn't expect. So having that open mind and dialogue is really important.
All right, so moving on to the, oh, sorry, Belle, do you have anything to add?
No, I was just going to say I definitely agree with everything you said, yeah.
For sure. So moving on to the application process, of course the application is due in the upcoming weeks, and so one of the viewers wanted to ask, how can NSLI alums demonstrate their success in their respective program for the CLS application, and what characteristics is the CLS program looking for when they're reviewing the applications?
So I feel like I can speak to this, especially since I've done CLS twice, and so I'll just say what I did on my second application that made it successful. What I really emphasized was the fact that I had been in that country before, and I had, that I had experience in country. I knew what I was doing already, so therefore my ability to acquire more language skills would be that much greater, more successful, because I didn't have to adjust, and even if you're applying to, if it's a different country, if you're not applying to the same site, or for the same language, still, like, really emphasize that. Be like, hey, I did this in high school, I'm a pro at this, like, I'm not gonna have any trouble. I'm not gonna be a problem student. Like, I'm super ready for this. I need to learn language. I know exactly what I want to do. I've already seen, what did work, what didn't work for me. I can, further capitalize on what did work, and I can use, all of those techniques, whatever that I learned the last time, to make this experience 10 times more valuable and just quicker, whatever, you're going to learn so much more. Like, that's how I phrased my stuff, and I liked it. So I don't know, but I think it makes sense.
So NSLI applicants definitely have an advantage because they've already been vetted by one government agency or institution that believes that the student has really good reasoning for being able to pursue a target language in another country. It does help if you've been to that target language and it's also the CLS country that you're applying for, but I really stress not to think that will guarantee your spot into CLS. I previously thought that too, but I spoke with a person who had done NSLI in Korea, and she said that she applied for CLS, wasn't able to get it. I think one of the most important things in writing this essay is not only to highlight your experience in NSLI and how you can apply this to the CLS experience, but also to emphasize your direction. Pick something, pick a particular moment during your NSLI experience, or pick a moment where you think your career or your direction, your passion really stem from that, and explain how going to Korea or whatever target language you're pursuing into that country will benefit you in the long run. I have from my own application experience, I've only done the CLS program once, so I don't know how much stock you want to put into it, but I really emphasize like where I've been, what I was doing, and where I plan to go. So using that NSLI experience will be important, but it's also important to explain why, your reasonings why.
Great. So the NSLI program, we had an additional interview. Is that the case for CLS, the application process?
Sorry, what was the question?
So for NSLI, we have an interview, the second round interview, and so is that the case for CLS? Is the application the only thing you submit, or is there also an interview for that?
We did not have an interview.
Okay. And so I think another question that some of the viewers might be wondering is how you guys are utilizing your target language today after your CLS program.
So I use it every day when I have Persian class still for my master's. I'm reading a prison memoir right now in Persian, reading Persian poetry. It's very much a part of my life.
So for Korean, they don't have advanced classes at my university, so I take the Korean classes at the Korean Cultural Center in DuPont, in DC, and the class requires like translations of news articles and whatnot, and just reading things online, and trying to find language partners wherever you are is really essential in keeping up the language.
All right, awesome. So I guess on a closing note, do you guys have any other advice for the applicants? Any advice for the essays? Any last minute thoughts or comments?
I don't know. I just usually say, just what you were saying before, Kathy, too. Like, just express your curiosity, but also like have a plan. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly what your plan is. I mean, you can just kind of make one that you think sounds semi-relevant or sounds like something they would be looking for. Like having a good balance between the whole thing that sorry, I cannot speak today. You already have that experience. Like really put an emphasis on that, and then you're curious still. You want to learn more. Your other experience like brought up more things for you that you want to know about. You want to learn more, and then bring that to the future. Like this is your plan. This is where you're heading, and you need this to get you there.
Yeah, in addition to that, just being really mindful of why you're even applying to it, Yeah. Your heart has to be really into the application for all of those words to be succinct and really relevant. I mean, they have the main application essay, and then they changed it to 4 short answers this year, and they took out the language evaluation. It wouldn't really hurt to explain like your level of language acquisition within one of those short answers. I personally don't know why they took the evaluation section out because I was at another conference during the alumni ambassador conference last weekend. But being able to stress that you have taken steps already to pursue that language and explain in a very concise one-sentence liner what you're going to do to keep pursuing that language. I think one of the most important things that CLS really looks at is the continuity. This is a means to an end, and you are taking steps to prepare yourself for that career, that lifestyle, wherever you decide to go. And this is such a special program, and I have to say, like, even the students who have applied and been rejected, just keep applying until you get it, and just congratulate yourself that you're taking these steps towards like a better future for yourself. I was surprised that so many of the CLS participants in my program, I was one of 31 students, have had international experience and have been to Korea. So having that international experience already under your belt does give you an advantage over this process. And like I said before, being a NSLI student, having already been like vetted out as like a qualified candidate will help you, but it will not secure your spot. So make sure your essays are well written and checked repeatedly.
Awesome. So Kathy and Val, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate all your comments and insights into the application process. And to all the viewers, I, along with Ryan Twaddle, really appreciate your participation in this event and all the questions. Just a reminder, the CLS application is due on November 12th. And if you guys have any other questions, do check on the website. They do have great resources there. So good luck and have a great evening. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.